Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I know you guys have watched me tack up Ophelia many times through a time lapse, but I figured that today I would actually show you guys my full tacking up and grooming routine. I'm gonna show you guys all of the brushes and products that I like to use, and I'm gonna show you everything that I do when I tack up Ophelia currently. So I hope you guys enjoy today's video, and let's get going. So I figured that I would sit down and actually start by showing you guys everything that I actually have in my grooming box and kind of explaining what they do and like what they are basically. So the first thing that I pretty much always have to have in my box is some grooming mitts that I think these ones are by Hands On, but they are my absolute favorite thing for grooming, whether it be getting sweat off, dirt, loose hair, all that kind of stuff. These are just my absolute favorite like curry comb type thing. For actual curry combs, I have two different kinds. I have this one jelly one that has two different sides. One's rough and one has smaller spikes. I primarily use this one for like hard mud, as well as I actually use this one for getting any hard poultice off in the summertime. And I also have this other one, which on one side it has the big spikes. The other side actually has these like massage rollers that I use pretty frequently on the horses' backs. So when it comes to like dandy brushes, I pretty much always use this one the most. This one is actually from Supra, I think. It's a long flicky brush. I have this really big, actually really old brush that I took from the like loft of my parents' barn. I have this short stiff brush that normally same thing as the other one I use mostly for getting poultice off in the summertime. And this is my absolute favorite brush, and I got it from Green Hawk. I mostly love it because it's my favorite color, but I pretty much use this every day. I pretty much use this when I don't have to use any curry comb. I just go over the whole body with this brush really quick. When it comes to my soft brushes, I have this one like long, I think it's horsehair, soft brush that I use every day basically. I also have this short goat hair brush that I use to work in any of my spray products that I have. Speaking of sprays, I actually have this towel that I keep in my grooming kit. Normally I use it for oil buffing, but sometimes I use it for drying off their legs if they're wet from sweat or snow or anything like that. We might as well stay on topic of sprays. So I have the Shapley's #1 light oil that I use about maybe once a week. I also have the avocado mist that I use more often just because it's not as heavy of a product. I use this one probably 2 to 3 times a week. Before we move on to feet, I also have two of these little soft brushes. Normally I don't actually use them for their face, which is what they're meant for. I actually use them for my tack. I dust off any of my saddles or whatever. I also have a tail brush, which is actually more commonly used on my own hair than it is on my horse's tails. When it comes to horses' feet, I keep two different kinds of hoof picks in my grooming kit. This is the one that I use all the time just because it has a brush. And I use this one when it comes to like really hard ice or any clay that's stuck in their foot. I also have some Hooflex oil that I use all the time. I also have the Keratex hoof hardener that I was actually using on Ophelia when she first got here because she had a problem with abscesses. So this really helped her feet strengthen up, but I don't know how much of it was actually like to this or if it was just to her growing out, but either way, I used it and her feet are now not so sensitive. I also have a comb that I use on Ophelia's mane. I don't use it on any of the other girls because none of them have manes, but yeah, I use this on Ophelia. I also always have vet wrap in my grooming kit, and if any of you who follow me are polo players, you will understand why I have electrical tape in my box. I use this to actually tie up the horse's tails sometimes. Normally I just use an Argentine braid, which doesn't need tape, but I use this for tournaments or if my tail's falling out. And last but not least, I have people ask me this all the time around the barn, why I keep a toonie in my grooming kit. So we have a convenience store that's like 2 seconds away from my farm, and sometimes before polo, people will run over there to get like snacks or a drink or whatever. So this is my like emergency snacks toonie. But yeah, that's all the stuff that actually goes in my grooming kit. So let's go get Ophelia all cleaned up. So after I get Ophelia all tied up, I generally start by picking out her stall. That way I don't have to be walking around in poop while I tack her up. Plus, after I pick out her feet, I don't want to have to pick her feet out again because she decided to stand in her poop. Whenever I'm tacking up in the winter, I always start by curry combing, and my absolute favorite curry combs are my grooming gloves. And Ophelia was definitely interested in them while I was putting them on. Using our curry comb or grooming gloves are really awesome for getting any loose hair off or dirt. And in Ophelia's case, because she's not clipped, she has a ton of loose hair. She and Missy are basically just consistently shedding all winter long, so I mainly use it on the two of them to get any loose hair off. Not to mention that she absolutely loves when I brush her neck. She also had this really nasty poop stain on her shoulder, I guess from when she was out in the paddock earlier, and the grooming mitts did a really good job of getting that off. And clearly she had a lot of loose hair on her shoulder as well. Before I put any brushes back in my kit, I generally brush them off as well as I can because I don't want any loose hair just sitting at the bottom of my grooming box. After I'm done currying any mud or loose hair off of her, I go in with that long flicky brush. That way any of the shavings or the loose hair that's left on her, I just flick all that off before I start going in with anything else. Once I'm done brushing over her whole body with my flick brush, I go back in with my soft brush. The soft brush flicks away any fine dust that's left on her fur, and it starts to bring out the natural shine that her fur has. Once I'm done going over her whole body with my soft brush, I go in with either my goat hair brush or my cloth, sometimes both, with one of my products, and I work that into her fur. I don't do this every day only because I don't want there to be any buildup of product, and I don't want her fur to start getting too oily from all the stuff that I use. Because these are supposed to be treatments, they're not supposed to be kind of like a shine on kind of thing. I don't want it that the product is basically putting glitter or something on their fur to make her shiny. I also don't want her to be too slippery when I ride her. Going along with this though, I generally try to avoid the girth and saddle area when I'm putting these products on, unless I'm doing a full body treatment and I'm not riding her that day. Because I don't want the saddle to slip around on her slippery fur. It's really hard to film when you keep headbutting the camera. Once I'm done working any product into her fur, I move down to her legs. And generally whenever I brush her legs, I always use my light blue brush because I absolutely love it basically. It's kind of like a mix between a hard brush and a flicky brush. Once I'm all done brushing her fur all over her body and her legs, I move down to her feet. I've actually posted a couple of TikToks showing picking out a horse's foot, and the amount of comments that I get asking if it hurts the horse is kind of funny. And in case you're wondering, no, picking out a horse's foot does not hurt them. Not unless you stab them with the hoof pick into the frog, which is that little V shape in the middle. Basically, horses' hooves are made out of the same protein that our fingernails and our hair is made of, called keratin, so they don't have any feeling in their hooves. I've been working on teaching Ophelia to drop her foot on her own instead of just slamming her foot down on the ground every time I let go of her foot, so that's why I'm holding her foot up a little longer after I've finished picking it out. Then when I'm done, I go around and do the last 3 feet. Once I'm done going around and picking out all of her feet, I take a brush and brush off any shavings or mud or poop maybe that might be on the outside of her hoof, because now I'm going to go in with the hoof treatment.
And this stuff basically helps moisturize their foot and stop from cracking, especially in the wintertime when everything's pretty dry. When I'm all done with her feet, I move on to her tail and her mane. I try not to brush her tail because I really like how long and thick it is, and I don't want brushing to break any of the strands. I sometimes also go in with the Shapley's oil at the base of her tail just to help it grow nice and shiny. Once her mane was all brushed out, I actually went in with a curry comb to her blaze. And if any of you have ever owned a horse with a blaze, you know that for some reason it sheds aggressively. So I basically just went in with the curry comb and I curried off as much of the loose blaze hair that I could. That way I could flick brush it off and hopefully won't be so much white hair all over the place. And now that she's all brushed off, time for some really pretty reveal shots out in the sun. And now it's time to get her all tacked up, and before I start, I always lay out all of my tack first. I currently still just use some brush boots while I'm riding her. Since we haven't started doing any mallet work, she doesn't really need any more leg protection than this. The brushing boots are mainly for support, as well as protecting herself from brushing her legs up against each other. I also throw some bell boots on her just to stop her from pulling her shoes off or stepping on the backs of her front feet. Out of habit from tacking up polo ponies, I always put her bridle on first, and also because she has a standing martingale which attaches to her girth, and it's a lot easier for me to put the bridle on first than it is for me to put the saddle on first because I'll just end up having to do the girth later anyway. Now it's time to move on to her saddle, and she's actually leveled up to a polo saddle now because of the stuff that we're working on, as opposed to back when I used to use my jumping saddle on her. And now that she's all tacked up, let's go do some final reveal shots with some of Julia's commentary.
Wow, Ophelia! Big booty. Yeah, switch that tail for me.
So I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video. It was a lot of fun filming my whole grooming routine for you guys. If you guys liked today's video, you can like and subscribe to my channel. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, as well as don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any of my new videos. You can check out my other socials on TikTok and Instagram right here. On TikTok, I post pretty much every day, multiple times a day sometimes. And in the future, Instagram is going to be where I'm going to ask you guys for any questions for Q&As and stuff. But anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you later.